Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video I'm bringing to you my short spoiler-free review of The Devourers by Indra Das. Now The Devourers is an Indian adult fantasy standalone novel and it also leans into horror at multiple instances. It was my book club pick for the month of July and I enjoyed it very much. The writing of the author is so gorgeous. Look at the amount of tabs I have here because almost each and every chapter that the author has written has some beautiful lines which are revealing parts of the story at the same time just beautiful as prose itself. So without any further ado, let's get into the various sections of the review right away. Let's start with the plot as usual. In this book, we follow our main character Alok, who lives in Kolkata, and he's also a history professor in a college in Kolkata. During one of the festivals that he goes to and attends a mela, what happens is Alok meets this man who's very mysterious, and because of some reason, both of them start interacting with each other. As Alok and this strange man talk with each other, the man reveals that he's a half werewolf. They have multiple conversations about shapeshifters and werewolves while they are together chatting in the mela, and both of them find a sense of affinity and acquaintance with each other, because of which both of them form a bond. They basically become kind of instant friends, and after this what happens is this stranger who has met Alok asks him to transcribe a manuscript that he has. The manuscript is in English, but it is not that clearly legible because of the way in which the person who has handwritten it. What basically happens is the stranger hires Alok in order to go forward and transcribe the manuscript and type it out on sheets of paper. For this, Alok will also be paid. Alok's life is not great right now because he has just had a broken engagement and his job is just boring and usual. In order to have something additional in his life which also gives him money, he goes forward and starts transcribing the story for the stranger. The stranger does not say how they'll be meeting the next time and how he'll be getting the transcribed manuscript back from him, but he just goes forward and transcribes the manuscript anyway because he knows that he'll be paid. As Alok goes forward and starts typing the story from the manuscript for the transcript, he understands that the manuscript contains the story of this woman named Sira, who was a sex worker in Mumtazabad during the 1600s, which is sometime during the period in which the Taj Mahal was being built. What happened in Sira's life and who's this strange man and why does he want Alok in specific to transcribe the story is all what we see as Alok goes on transcribing the story as a first draft, and what all happens between Alok and the stranger as the story gets unveiled little by little. Now moving on to the characters, we have a very limited set of characters here. In the present, we follow only two of the characters whom we saw in the plot portion of the review itself, who are Alok and the strange man. The strange man has also said that he's part werewolf, that is half werewolf. Apart from these two, in the transcription that Alok is working on, we see the story of four other people, of whom three are shapeshifters. The first one who's not a shapeshifter is this woman named Sira, whom I said as before is a sex worker during that time. And apart from her, the three shapeshifters whom we see here are Fenrir, Macedon and Jebaudan. All three of these shapeshifters have the ability to shift into another skin as an animal, and all of them have two souls or two bodies. The three of them are together functioning as a group, and one day out of nowhere, Sira is met by one of these three people. What all has happened in Sira's life and the life of the shapeshifters after this interaction is what happens in the past of the story. And I can say that for 70% of the book, we see the story of Sira and the shapeshifters, and for the rest 30%, we see what happens between Alok and the stranger. Apart from these 6 to 7 characters whom we see as main characters, there are also some others who just come and go in and out of the story because of the part of the story which happens between Alok and the stranger at present. The backstories for each and every main character whom we see here is really well planned out and laid out by the author here. We get to see Sira's stories in just a couple of pages, but the depth that he gives to her story in those few pages itself is incredible. At the same time, since we have three shapeshifters in the past, we get to know that these shapeshifters don't age normally as humans do. They have lived through centuries, so their backstories are so much thick and so much more dense compared to the human stories we see here. All the characters are also very different from each other. The relationships that are formed between the characters here, both in the past as well as the present, and so many other such things in terms of the character work is really well done. Now moving on to the world building and writing, which I think is the strongest tool that the author has used here. The writing of the author in specific is extremely good. The main reason why I went forward and tabbed these many things and highlighted the book like crazy is because the author's writing is gorgeous, but it is not something easy to read. So this is not a book for beginners at all in any way. If you're a beginner, don't read this book. But if you're someone who wants to read dark Indian fantasy, you should definitely go forward and try this. It will not be easy to read, okay? It will definitely not be easy to read. It will be hard to get through because of the content that it has. but it will be so delicious and of really high quality as you keep reading the book. The descriptions that the author uses here are very elaborate and they are super detailed in order to present us the time periods as well as the places in which the story is happening, which leads on to the world building, if you ask me. Because as I said before, 70% of the story is between Sira and the shapeshifters. So it happens sometime during the 1600s or 1700s during the Mughal rule in India, which means that there were a lot of trade routes also establishing exactly during that time, because it's just before the advent of the British in our country. There are different races of people from different parts of the country who are trying to get into the country and make it their own. Along with this, we also have our supernatural creatures who are the shapeshifters, who are with Sira having their own story. The best part about the world building compared to anything else inside this book is the lore of the shapeshifters that the author has put into place at each and every place that he gets. As we see the backstories of the shapeshifters evolving little by little, we also get to know more about their own kind as a whole. What all happens in a shapeshifter's life? What are the kinds of relationships that they have? How they act as pants? And why is there a necessity to form a community between shapeshifters? And the most horrifying fact about them is that they are human flesh eaters. They can feed on human flesh only and human beings only and not on any other thing. And we see that Sira as a human being who's working with these shapeshifters because she has no other way in the past. Why she is not eaten, how she just escapes them. What all happens in Sira's life is all really well explored by the author via the world building, in my personal opinion. At the same time, the book has copious amounts of footnotes, okay? At times what happens for me is, if there are many footnotes inside a book, it becomes very annoying. But in this book, it was not like that. It was a lot compared to normal books, but it was necessary, okay? We got to see the story happening as such, but we step back a little bit and we just see the author explaining some things to us, because it's not like all of us know these things which he mentions inside the story. So that was fun to read in terms of the writing as well as world building. Finally, talking about the pacing of the entire story from the first chapter to the last is very slow, okay? The author does not speed up the story at any instant at all. There are multiple action-packed scenes in between, but they also do not fasten up the plot in any way. Each and every plot, each and every storyline that we follow, both in the past as well as the present, happening between different characters, two different characters, is very slow. And the slowness, I think, is very intentional, because he wants us to understand the depth of the things and emotions that are felt by these characters at each and every instant. And I think the slowness only provided that for me. As I said before, the writing is not easy to read despite it being so beautiful. So you will take your time reading the story. At the same time, the story itself will be a little bit slow to take in. But because of this, what will happen is you'll start to experience the story as the author has intended to. You'll see the darkness inside the story. You'll see the love in there. You'll see the friendship. You'll see the kind of weird community bonding that these shapeshifters have. There's also a huge sense of philosophy which goes on inside the book, exploring what is good and what is not, and so much more. As a whole, this was a really different read for me, which I'm very grateful that I chose for the book club. I can see myself recommending this multiple times in the future, but if you're going to read this book, please do look out for the trigger warnings, because it does have a few. As a whole, it was very fun to read, and I rated this one 4.25 out of 5 stars. So yes guys, that's it for my spoiler-free review of The Devourers by Indra Das. If you found it useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.